Hello and welcome to my channel, Learning Web Page Test. In this video, we'll go through a workflow of creating a simple page load test. Knowing how to make a page faster can only be achieved if you are able to measure how fast a page is. This also helps us measure all the performance enhancements and optimizations applied to the page to make it better. To start with, let's navigate to webpagetest.org. In this example, we'll be using the public instance of WebPageTest. Once you are on the homepage of WebPageTest, provide the URL of choice you want to test. In this case, we'll use google.com. Once you have selected the URL, the second option is to select a location. A location can be selected in two ways. One way is to pick up a location from the dropdown. The other option is to click on Select Maps and pick a location from the map. In this case, I would pick up Tools, Virginia, and click on OK. Once we select the location, let's pick a browser. WebPageTest supports Chrome, Firefox, and Opera browsers. For this example, let's pick up Chrome. We completed a three-step process of selecting the URL, selecting the test location, and selecting the browser. We can go ahead and start the test. Before we start the test, let's talk about the different phases involved in the test. Since we are using the public instance of WebPageTest, many people may be trying to use it at the same time while you are trying to run your test. The browser and location at which you are trying to run your test may be used by somebody else at the same time. This would result in your test waiting in a queue. Once the test reaches in the front of the queue, it will switch from the waiting phase to the testing phase. Since we have configured a very basic test, this phase should not take more than a minute. And once the testing completes, the test will reach onto the completion phase or the done phase where the page becomes a report summary. This is where we can get started with analyzing the performance of the data. So let's get started and click on Start Test. As we have discussed, our test is currently in the waiting state. At this point of time, it is waiting in a queue to get its turn to execute based on the desired location. We are done with running our test. Let's look at the results and understand the results. The first place to look is the table of data. This is the metric summary of the test containing a breakdown of important milestones on the page load process. Let's understand the result. Let's start with the load time. The time from the initial request until the browser loads event, also known as the document complete time. This is the default performance metric on WebPageTest. First byte. This is the time until the server responds with the first byte of the response. Start render. This is the time until the browser paints the content of the screen. Let's look at document complete. Within document complete, there are three more metrics. Let's start with time. This is exactly the same one as the load time. So you'll see very similar metrics based on the load time. Request represents the number of HTTP requests before the load event, not including the initial request. Bytes in is the total size of the document complete request, response bodies in the byte. Now let's move on to the fully loaded. Fully loaded also has similar metrics as document complete. Let's talk about the time. The time from the initial request until WebPageTest determines the page to have finished loading content. The page may have waited for the load event to defer loading secondary content. The time it takes to load the secondary content is accounted for its fully loaded time. The requests are the total number of HTTP requests recorded in this test run, not including the initial request. The bytes in represents the total number of bytes received in this test run. In our subsequent videos, we'll talk more about the grading and how to understand, analyze, and act on the grading.